Our designated group was prehistoric fossils, specifically those of elephants and rhinos. We analyzed the phylogeny of each of these animals. To start off, there are currently two species of elephants that roam the earth: the Asian elephant, known as Elephas maximus, and the African elephant, known as Loxodonta africana. The African elephant, on average, is 10 to 11 feet tall at the shoulder and weighs between 4 and 6 tons at full size. It has a saddle-shaped back, gently upward curving tusks, and large ears. The tip of the trunk has 2 fingers, one upper and one lower. The smaller Asian elephant is about 8 to 10 feet tall at the shoulder and weighs 3 to 5 tons. It's slightly shorter and lighter than the African elephant. Its back is curved, giving the appearance of a humped back. The tusks are gently curved upwards, but are smaller than the African elephant's, and the ears are smaller as well. Lastly, the Asian elephant has one finger-like structure at the tip of its trunk. Elephants are a member of the Elephantidae family, which consists of all the species of elephants and mammoths. The sister taxa of the modern elephants, both the African and the Asian, is Mammuthus, or the mammoth. These species of elephants developed similar morphologies for feeding on special types of grasses. These changes include an increase in ridges on the molar, a decrease in the thickness of the enamel, widening and increasing the height of the molar, and heightening of the cranium. Like the Asian and the African elephant, mammoths have no enamel on their tusks and have rigid molars. Unlike the two modern elephant species, mammoths' tusks twist into a spiral. Mammoths were also on average about 3 feet taller than modern elephants, being about 13 feet tall. The average mammoth weighed 10 tons, the equivalent of a full-size school bus. Mammoths began to disperse from Africa into areas with a colder climate. Therefore, it developed smaller ears and tail and an increase in skin and fur thickness. Mammoths also had a thick layer of subcutaneous fat and short back legs to prevent them from losing heat. Their long tusks were used to clear away snow, and they had 2 finger-like structures on the tip of their trunk to help them pick up plants. Asian and African elephants and mammoths originated in Africa during the Pliocene epoch, about 3 to 4 million years ago. Ancestors of the Asian and African elephants and the mammoths in the Elephantidae family are the Primelephus and Stegodibelodon. The most recent ancestor of the Asian and African elephants and the mammoths are the Primelephus, which is a genus of the Elephantidae family that literally means first elephant. The Primelephus are known for their large size and unique tooth structure. In fact, the only observable difference between modern elephant species and Primelephus are the small shovel tusks that appear on the lower jaw. The immediate ancestor of Primelephus is Gomphotherium, which is believed to have lived in the Miocene epoch about 5 to 23 million years ago. Mastodons are a common ancestor of modern-day elephants and mammoths. Mastodon means breast-toothed, named after the projections on the crowns of the molar. Mastodons are believed to have lived during the Pleistocene period and died out at the end of the Pleistocene, about 11,000 years ago. The mastodon looks similar to the mammoth in that it has a thick coat of hair. It also has long tusks that curve upwards, but not as dramatically as the mammoths. The Mammoth americanum, or the American mastodon, is the most recent species of mastodon. Mastodons are members of the Proboscidea, referring to the long, flexible trunk, also called the proboscis. Mastodons are about 10 feet tall as adults. Although the mammoth and mastodon species are related, they differ in many ways. The mammoth has an enormous crested head, long tusks, high shoulders, and a sloping back, similar to modern-day elephants. The mastodon had a flattened head with shorter tusks and a longer, more rectangular body. One of the most obvious differences is in the teeth. The mastodon tooth has enamel-covered ridges adapted to eating leaves and conifer needles. The mammoth tooth, on the other hand, has a broad, flat grinding surface with thin enamel ridges. This helps the mammoth eat more abrasive grasses and legumes. As odd as it may sound, both elephants and manatees descended from a common ancestor, Tethetheria. Tethetheria include early, hoofed mammals that lived during the Cenozoic age. These animals were mostly small and rodent-like. Over time, these creatures evolved into land-dwelling elephants or sea-dwelling manatees. Sirenians, which are the ancestors of manatees, first emerged sometime during the Eocene epoch, about 55 million years ago. These sea-dwelling animals lived in the Tethys Sea, located between Africa and Eurasia. Around the same time that the Sirenians came about, the land-dwelling Proboscideans developed from the Tetratheria as well. Manatees, therefore, belong to the order called Sirenia and are direct descendants from the Sirenians. Elephants, on the other hand, are direct descendants of the Proboscideans, making these two groups closely but not directly related. There are many similarities between elephants and manatees. The first is that they are both classified as subungulates. They both also have uniquely shaped spherical hearts. Manatees have 3 or 4 fingernail-like structures on the tips of their flippers, similar to the toenails on the feet of elephants. Both elephants and manatees have thick gray skin with sparse hairs. Both species also have molars that move toward the front of their mouth, eventually break off, and are replaced by those at the rear of their mouth. Manatees have 2 incisors that bear resemblance to the tusks of an elephant. Manatees use their large, muscular lips to break apart vegetation and steer food to their mouths, similar to how elephants make use of their trunks when eating. Both manatees and elephants are herbivores. As you can see, there is a great line of ancestry that corresponds with current elephant species.
The second part of our project had to do with rhinos. Rhinos belong to the group known as Perissodactyls. This group also includes tapirs and horses. Most of the few remaining members that exist today are endangered. After the extinction of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, mammals began evolving large body sizes. In this way, they were able to fill the void that the large extinction created. Perissodactyls were one group that acted in this way. The Perissodactyls are said to have originated roughly 50 million years ago in the Eocene period. Their ancestor, Phenacodontids, were some of the earliest herbivorous mammals that existed at that time. These animals were small, clawed, short-limbed, and slow-moving creatures that do not physically resemble current-day rhinos. In regard to the more current Perissodactyl group, the oldest member is known as Hyracotherium. This creature can be linked to both horses and rhinos as a common ancestor. However, these creatures seem more closely related to ancient Phenacodontids than modern-day species. In other words, members of the Hyracotherium group do not greatly resemble current-day species. Perissodactyls split off into 2 distinct groups early in the Eocene. The first group was called equoids and included various types of horses. The second group, known as the Ceratomorpha, contains species of tapir and rhino. The early rhino ancestors evolved into 3 distinct families during the Eocene. The first was Amniodontidae. These lived in Asia and North America. They had a prehensile upper lip which enabled them to grasp leaves and twigs. They are also relatively primitive looking. The Amniodontidae includes Amniodon, Catarcodon, and Metamniodon. Catarcodon, much like the Amniodon, also have a prehensile upper lip, but it is much more modified than the Amniodon. Metamniodon were more hippo-like creatures and became specialized for an amphibious lifestyle. The second distinct family that was created during the Eocene was called the Hydrocodontidae. This also included Indicothers, which were basically gargantuan mammals. In addition to this, Forstercupra were included as well. They were the size of a cow and found in modern-day India, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, and China. Lastly were Parasarathium and Juxta. Parasarathium were giant, hornless rhinos with a shape roughly similar to its much smaller, extant cousins living today. The final distinct species are rhinocerotids, or true rhinos. These are a very recent species of rhino. In the past, differing species of rhinos were scattered throughout the globe in a variety of locations. During the Miocene, rhinos migrated to Africa. During the Pliocene, they traveled from North America to South America. Eventually, they became extinct in North America due to either overhunting and climate change, or a mixture of both. That leads us to current-day rhinos. African rhinos include black rhinos and white rhinos. Asian rhinos include Sumatran, Java, and greater one-horned rhino, also known as the Indian rhino. The Sumatran rhino is the smallest and the oldest living species. It is covered with patches of stiff hair. Its lineage goes back to the Miocene. It is the closest living relative of the woolly rhino and was initially found in the foothills of the Himalayas. It lives roughly 35 to 40 years, has a height of 48 to 58 inches, a length of 8 to 10 feet, and weighs roughly 1,800 pounds. They are a two-horned rhino and very endangered. There are about 400 left in the world today. Another of the Asian species is the Javan rhino. It weighs between 3,200 and 4,400 pounds and has a length of 3 to 3.5 meters. It has one horn and prominent folds in the skin, similar to the Indian rhino, which we will talk about in a little bit. Its population has dwindled and now only exists in Indonesia and Vietnam. It may exist in other locations as well, but we are not sure. Like the Sumatran rhino, it is endangered. The greater one-horned rhino, or the Indian rhino, is the largest of the rhino species. It has a single black horn and weighs between 4,000 to 6,000 pounds. It stands around 2 meters tall and between 3 to 4 meters long. It has an ashy gray, hairless skin which develops thick folds. This kind of resembles an armor plating. Along with this, it has a prehensile upper lip that helps it forage. It can be found in India or Nepal. The black and white rhino are part of the African rhino species. The black rhino is solitary, feeds at night, is between 4 and 6 feet tall, and weighs between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds. Along with this, it also has 2 horns. The white rhino lives on Africa's grassy plains. It is between 11 and 14 feet tall and weighs between 3,000 and 8,000 pounds. It has a squared upper lip, and much like the black rhino, it is endangered and has 2 horns. Surprisingly, both black and white rhinoceroses are actually gray. Therefore, they differ not in color, but in lip shape. The black rhino has a pointed upper lip, while its white relative has a squared lip. The difference in lip shape is related to the animal's diets. Black rhinos are browsers that get most of their food from eating trees and bushes. They use their lips to pluck leaves and fruit from the branches. White rhinos graze on grasses, walking with their enormous heads and squared lips lowered to the ground. An interesting fact about rhinos is that they're actually related to horses. As discussed before, they are both part of the Prehistoric group, also known as the odd-toed ungulates. This relates rhinos to not just horses, but donkeys, zebras, and tapirs as well. While not related to elephants, rhinos have a large history in regards to their lineage as well.
Who knows what elephants and rhinos will look like in another 3 million years? How similar will they be to modern-day species?